Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, May 20th. You were just tuning in. We've just talked a lot of football. College football potentially getting a brand new CEO. The NFL looking at rule changes, including one that allows the NFL players to participate in flag football. We went over what a potential dream team might look like there. In this segment, we turn our attention away from the sport of football onto the world of baseball. We are almost a quarter of the way through the season now. It's crazy how fast time has gone. But baseball, back in the limelight. Rivalry weekend was last weekend. Every single team played a rivalry game. It was more of a geographic rivalry than anything else, but it was fun, and there were some large recent consequences from around the sport. We'll get into that in a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, May 20th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the world of baseball here. We're going to start off in New York, the mecca of all things, the New York market, where Juan Soto has flipped from the New York Yankees to the New York Mets. He is now making $765 million. But the big conversation is not around his play, which has not necessarily been the worst. He's hitting about 960 with his OPS, but he made his return to Yankee Stadium over the weekend for the first of the Subway Series this year. It did not go well. 1 for 10, 3 walks, no extra base hits, no RBIs. He was booed relentlessly. He was expecting to be welcomed back after helping lead Aaron Judge and this team to a World Series berth. Instead, it went about as poorly as it possibly could have. He let those boos get to him, and I think it's really dejected him. He's not a guy that necessarily is the biggest hustle guy in the world. He started off with the Nats. I am a Nats fan growing up here, but he's someone that is not necessarily going to run out every single batted ball, but he is someone that shows that effort and plays hard, and he loves the game. We haven't seen a lot of those signature Soto shuffles from around the New York Mets area this year. We haven't seen a lot of that swagger, and recently the big issue that's popped up with Juan Soto is that hustle stat. He, in the Subway Series, hit a tough ground ball that was a very tough play for the second baseman, and he was just jogging out of the box. This caught a lot of people's attention. It was a tie game in the 8th inning, and a lot of the people's points are when you're on offense, you only get so many chances. You only get 4, maybe 5 shots every single given game to make something happen. I don't necessarily think that Juan Soto is evil for not running this out, but it reared its head again last night when he hit a screamer off of the wall in Fenway. And a lot of times those are the kind of stuff that, as we saw with Pete Alonso later on in the game, you get thrown out of on second going for because of how short that wall is and how hard you can hit it off of it. But Juan Soto, when he hit that ball, was kind of admiring it like he hit a home run, hustled, and instead of it didn't hustle, I should say, and instead of it being a double, it was just a single. Now, is this going to be a huge deal? No, I don't think this is a huge deal, but I think there's a little bit of buyer's remorse from Mets fans. Juan Soto is a guy that is sold as one of the best hitters in all of baseball. But what he does, and what I think a lot of people who don't really follow Juan Soto as closely as the people that he has played for, is the fact that he's not necessarily a guy like Aaron Judge, that at the beginning of the season, he's going to be red hot. He consistently starts the season out slow, and you're like, oh, is Juan Soto okay? But he always finds a way to turn it on. His specialty is the zone. He has arguably the best eye in Major League Baseball. You talk about a guy that consistently is in talks of breaking the on-base percentage record set by Barry Bonds. It's not because teams are necessarily the most scared to pitch to him. They pitch around him a little bit. They're not going to give him meatballs down the middle. but it's because of his eye and his discipline that he gets on base so much. And you saw that even in the Subway Series. He hit 100, 1 for 10, but he got on base at like 200 at basically a 250 clip, right? And that's not necessarily his greatest either. Usually he hits a little bit better, but still getting on base at least once a game. He is someone that you can rely on to get on base, keep the order moving. And I think that's something that Mets fans who are learning a little bit more about Juan Soto, a guy that's getting paid now $765 million, they're learning a little bit more about what he is as a player. And sure, he didn't hustle, but not all baseball players hustle. It's one of my biggest pet peeves with the sport, actually, is the fact that they don't all hustle out of the box. I would love it if they all went out and every single time the ball was hit to third base, even if it was a for sure out, they hustled. They made the third baseman rush the throw a little bit. That's why speed demons that are coming up nowadays are huge for the sport of baseball. I think speed is a super underrated part of the game. And Juan Soto, he's not necessarily the fastest guy. But I think if you run, it causes chaos. And chaos in the sport of baseball is what makes these crazy clips happen. And I would love to see every single team running out every single time the ball is put in play. But there is just a spotlight on Juan Soto right now because Juan Soto is the highest paid player in baseball, because he is making $765 million this year, because it is the New York market, and because he is allegedly not having the greatest season of his career. He will turn it around. This is not something that I am concerned about with Juan Soto. He is a guy that I absolutely believe will find a way to be that guy that the Mets paid for, but even still, that New York market is brutal. We've seen it get to players before. He had a really great season with the Yankees, and for all the people that are saying, oh, he misses the Yankees, yeah, I'm sure he does. He wasn't catching this much flack when he was playing for the Yankees. He wasn't catching this much flack when he was playing for the Nationals, when he was playing for the Padres, even though he didn't really love the Padres over there. He needs to feel the old adage, right? Look good, feel good, play good. He might look good. He doesn't feel good. He's still playing good, but he's not playing elite level baseball like a lot of people expected when he came over. You give him a little bit of encouragement. I know that's not necessarily the New York market way of things, especially with Yankees fans. They're going to continue to be harsh on him because it seems to be working. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how the rest of this season develops. But Juan Soto should be completely fine. This is not a huge story. It's kind of being blown out of proportion here, and I think the Mets still have a really good one over there with him. The other major story having to do with Major League Baseball happened over the weekend, as the Baltimore Orioles have now lost 7 straight games. 7 straight games for a team that won 100 games 2 years ago. Brandon Hyde, manager of the year then. They won 91 games last year. They have not won a playoff series. They have really struggled in the playoffs over there. But now after a 15-30 start, now 7 straight losses, the O's needed to find a guy to point to. And that guy, Brandon Hyde. Brandon Hyde, I don't necessarily think was the problem over there in Baltimore. There were a lot of issues. I think the bats weren't going as well as they wanted to, but I think the real issue is Mike Elias, the GM. There were so many clear needs for this team, namely the pitching staff. The lineup, it's still crushing. Jackson Holliday is hitting with the best in the entire league. He is someone that you have relied upon, and you have consistently seen him step up and do what they need him to do. But when the Washington Nationals, are dropping 7, 8, and 10 runs on your head, that is very alarming. You can see the issue. We all knew what the issue was. It was the pitching staff. They make a big swing to bring in Corbin Burnes for 1 season. They don't re-sign him. Then they don't go out and sign a big-name pitcher in free agency. They bring in a 40-year-old Charlie Morton. They rely on Zach Eflin. They rely on these guys that are kind of these mid-tier starters. They're not going to be so expensive, but there is a clear weakness with this team. They need a frontline starter. They need more than one frontline starter, and is going to cause the downfall of this very promising young core. They have plenty of guys that I won't say are rotting away in the minor league system, but they have lots of guys that if they're not going to get playing time, it's going to destroy their confidence down there. They're like, what more do I have to do to get into the MLB? We're seeing guys that they've traded to the Marlins show up and say, look, I'm finally here. It's working out. I'm getting my confidence despite the Marlins not being the greatest team in the MLB, right? The Baltimore Orioles desperately need starting pitching and bullpen help. And what they did in the offseason was absolutely nothing to address that. They let guys walk. They needed to be aggressive in pursuing guys like Roki Sasaki, although that one probably was never going to happen. They needed to be aggressive in pursuing guys like Max Fried, who is having an excellent season over in New York for the Yankees. They needed to be aggressive in pursuing guys like Corbin Burns, guys like Luis Severino that can be not necessarily frontline starters, but guys that can be really great pieces to this Orioles squad. They needed to be aggressive, and instead they sat down and they said, we're going to build a cheap pitching staff. We're going to find diamonds in the rough, and this is what it did. It got your manager fired. The players, they liked the manager. That is going to be a hit for the confidence. It did not help. They lost the next 2 games to the Washington Nationals en route to a sweep, the first time the Nationals have swept them on the road since 2018. This is not good. The Orioles need to bring in pitching. And I think this is much more of a GM issue and an owner issue rather than the manager. But somebody had to go, and it was the manager. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts for the Baltimore Orioles firing their manager? What about the Juan Soto situation? I'd love to hear what you have to say. And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I will be back tomorrow talking about the NHL and NBA conference finals game that have just tipped off. The Timberwolves and the Thunder done with quarter 1 and period 1 over in Raleigh between the Canes and the Florida Panthers. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to